And now what?
And now we just see if somebody talks to you on the side.
Oh, nobody's trying to talk to me. Let's see. Sean Chambers is stoked. Knobster is ready to go. All right. Well, I've got some questions here that we printed out. As you guys may have heard, S&M is now 36 years old, which is pretty amazing. And we have the little $36 deal going on the book if anybody wants to catch up on some S&M history. And it's Friday, but James Eason, the voice and face of Factory Friday, is on vacation. So we're doing something a little different today. No factory, just me and some questions. So let's get it started here. Ex Pravadox, that's a crazy handle, asks, when will you make Reynolds grips in dark roast colorway to match the stem? That is a really good question. We have no plans of making the Reynolds grip right now. Unfortunately, to do a new color, we have to do 500 pairs. Those are made at ODI, American made grips. So 500 pairs in a new color. That's kind of tough because we already have the burgundy, we have the black, and we also have the green. And I'm pretty sure we have quite a few of those, but I'm going to check that out real fast. So I don't think we're going to be doing a new colorway in that grip anytime soon, unfortunately, unless somebody scoops up a few thousand grips. Then we might look into it. Cool Grandpa asks, Chris, will you ever bring back Prince Albert cranks? Wow. These are some good questions. Most likely no, because they are so frickin' expensive to make. It's almost impossible to sell those things. I don't know how Profile does it, to be honest with you. Those Profile cranks are made in America. The price is pretty good. They're good cranks. I have no idea how they do it. I think it's just because they've been making them for so long. They've got it down. I'd love to make some Prince Albert cranks, but it would just be extremely expensive. So I don't know. Maybe we bring back some replica Prince Albert cranks for kind of the old school, mid school collector kind of guys. Mike Meeks, hey Chris, what is one business decision you have made that you wish you could get a do-over in S&M history? A business decision that I wish I could do over. Oh, that is a good question. Maybe back in 2000 or so, whenever we started Black Market bikes with Carter Holland, and we made the 26-inch hardtail Black Market frames. We made one with a derailleur hanger, and we made one for single speed. The Dirt Jump 26-inch frames, kind of one of the first brands to make a good American-made one. Maybe looking back on that, maybe if I could do that one over, I'd probably do it a little bit different, and we would have probably kept that style of frame in our line to this day. So maybe the business decision was that Carter and I kind of had a falling out, and that was the end of it. So my do-over would be to handle that whole thing differently, maybe do it just as S&M instead of starting another brand, and we could still be doing that to this day. So that's one business decision I would do over if I had a chance to. Cool Panda asks, what was the first S&M frame and what is Newt's frame? Newest. This is what I'm hearing. The first frame was the S&M K9 design, spelt Z-I-N-E, terrible name, because it actually looked like K9 Design. And that was basically my signature frame because I was the mad dog, K9 dog. It was my design, dog design. Terrible. And that didn't last long. That quickly became the Mad Dog frame, which is what it should have been in the first place, but it wasn't. It was the K9 Design, which was silly. So that was the first frame. And the newest frame, not even done yet, but the newest frame would be a couple of Hallahan Rambler frames. So stay tuned for more info on that. The newest frame in production would be the Fit Young Buck frames and the Corey Anastasio Metal Eagle frame. Xavier Jacobs asks, question, Mr. Mad Dog. Thank you. What is the best BMX frame your company ever produced? And what is your favorite BMX frame you ever had? The best frame we've ever produced, I mean, they've all been good. I would say the newer the frame, the better, just because things keep progressing all the time and improving. So the latest frames would probably be our best frames. Take the Fit Young Buck, for instance. And what is your favorite BMX frame that I've ever had? I would have said back in the day it would have been my Challenger frame, and then it was probably my I had a PBR S&M PBR frame that I really liked. But honestly, my favorite frame that I've ever had to this date is my current frame, which is my CCR, and I love it. Julian Poole, Chris, does S&M still use Supertherm chromoly, or is everything straight 4130 these days? Well, that's a great question. Supertherm was just the name that we made up on our own. That was true temper, air hardening material, which they had a name for, but another brand was using the name. Standard was the company that was using the true temper tubing as well through their manufacturer at the time, which was called Waterford Cycle, which was in Michigan. And they didn't want us using the name, whatever it was. I can't remember. They had some fancy name for just air hardening alloy steel. And we just made up our own name, which was Supertherm. And then we made up a superhero, Bogey Givens, who worked with us at the time and rode, was a professional racer and dirt jumper. He became the face of the superhero, Supertherm. So that was probably pretty politically incorrect. Wouldn't fly these days, but it was funny at the time. But True Temper no longer makes bicycle tubing. In fact, they're not interested in doing it at all. And I just saw an article online. If you search it, you can find it. It just came out the other day about why they decided to focus on golf clubs and baseball bats and all this other stuff, but they're not interested in bicycle tubing anymore. So our tubing now comes from another manufacturer in Ohio, and it is butted. It's air hardening. In fact, this plant that we work with now was making the material for True Temper back in the day anyway. So we've just kind of gone straight to the source. And we do use some straight gauge condition in 4130, but we also use butted, and we use a number of different alloy steels, so different chromolys. So we're all over the place. So to answer your question, basically use a Supertherm type material, which is air hardening alloy steel. And we also use straight gauge 4130. And I'm going to scoot over here. Will Chris Childs get any more signature parts? I have his bars and they are sweet. And that comes from Sean Chambers. We are actually doing a Chris Childs colorway of a frame right now. I believe it's a standard BTM frame, not the XL. Don't quote me on that. So he has a colorway of frame coming out. Joseph Baggy asks, what fit or S&M frame sold the worst? Well, we don't have any old frames laying around, so anything that we ever made sold. What didn't sell all that well? Geez, that's I'm not going to say it sold the worst. Maybe we just didn't make very many of them. But remember the Fit Lurch frame? We made a really long, a really big frame that was probably too big for most people, so we didn't do a ton of those. So maybe a Fit Lurch frame.
What about the WTF?
And Melissa asks, what about the WTF? Yeah, the WTF was a little wild. So, but some people really liked it. It had the closed rear drop and had that tiny little head tube and had a lot of interesting stuff going on with it. I don't think we made huge numbers of that, but some people really loved it. In fact, some people were really bummed when we stopped making it. But I don't know. We've never had a problem selling frames, especially the American made frames. Maybe some of the imported fit frames over the years have been a tough sell. GIO says, I was there when Rick Moliterno made that special steel, and it was, and then clears it up. It was called, they called it OX Platinum. So Temper called it OX Platinum. They used it over there at Waterford Cycles on the Schwinn Paramountain frame and the Schwinn Paramount road bike frames at the time. And then they used it on those original standard frames, and they didn't want us using the name OX Platinum. So we used the name Super Therm, and nobody really cares. Now everybody's got a name for their special chromoly, which is all pretty much the same if it comes from Taiwan, but you got lots of different fancy names. Easton Usher, what's up, Easton? S&M rider. Just saw Doyle on the racetrack. So when are we going to see the whole team make their race debuts? Would be sick to see Stu make a transit-like vid at one of these upcoming nationals. That would be pretty cool. Get everybody to the racetrack. I've got a question for you guys. What S&M rider would you most enjoy seeing on the racetrack? I already know the answer to that question. For me, it would be Hoder. Jacob Sparling, Factory Fridays are awesome to watch and some great insight. Are you guys going to make a trip into Canada soon? Be really cool to see some of the team on the west coast of Canada. Also, we need some aluminum Hoder pedals with removable pins with the big heads, not grub screws. Cheers. When are we going to make a trip to Canada? That's a great question. I feel like somebody went to Canada not that long. I actually was in Canada not that long ago. I don't remember the name of the town I was in, but it was really nice. It was in BC. Oh, Kelowna. I was in Kelowna. Very nice. Flew into BC. But that was a quick trip. But I'd love to go back to Canada, especially in the summer in BC. Ride some trails. Yeah, maybe we'll get it. Maybe we'll get a team trip going. I know it was a little weird there during COVID. Even Canada was kind of difficult for travel. Geez, even when I went there, I had to have a COVID test done in BC just to get on the plane to go home. Pretty weird. So yeah, Canada. We'd love to go to Canada. So maybe we'll go back to Cologne with the team. Aluminum Hoder pedals. Yeah, that would be cool. But honestly, the Fit, what we call the Fit trail pedal, even the loose ball one is so nice. I mean, they're affordable. They feel so good. I love those pedals. I can't imagine ever needing another pedal, to be totally honest. And Hoder loves his PC pedals. And not to sound like a broken record, but the tooling cost on new pedals is outrageous. To make a new pedal would probably cost close to 20 grand in setup just to make the pedal. Then you have to make thousands and thousands and thousands of pedals, and you probably have to sell them for 10 years to even pay off the mold or the tooling. So I don't know about that pedal idea, but I recommend you try the Fit trail pedal if you haven't already. Okay. What current frame, this comes from Michael Schaefer, what current frame would you say is the closest geometry to the original Series 1? I have a original Series 1 in my office that I found in a Taiwanese frame factory one time, which is pretty funny. Obviously being duplicated at a reduced cost. I don't know. That thing, I mean, one of the trail frames, would have a long back end, pretty raked out actually by today's standards. So maybe I mean, I would look at the Metal Eagle, I would look at the Heartbreaker, I would look at the CCR. Those are probably the closest, maybe even an S&M Steel Panther race frame. I mean, that thing probably had a 15-inch back end on it. Mike Meeks, thumbs up. Are your top and down tubes still double butted now? True temper is gone. Depends on what frame it is. Race frames, yes, for sure. Most of our down tubes on more street oriented frames are straight gauge tubes these days, a little bit thicker just to avoid denting. So you're not going to find a double butted down tube on any frame that's used for kind of like street or anything like that. Got to give a Roger Gould, got to give a shout out to Dougie Fresh for always taking care of us out here. Yeah, Doug is the man, and Doug and James Murphy are holding it down these days. Just the two of them. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Ben Silver got a job working for some kind of outdoor sports company, and he no longer is with us. So Dougie and Murph are over there, buried in work, but they're still taking care of everybody. Saw an S&M ring on Hoder's finger. Will you be selling any in the future? Probably not. I don't know who made that ring or Hoder had it made. I know REA and his mom and his sister have made some jewelry through the years. It's been pretty cool. We've never really thought about selling it.
Christmas, we're working on some stuff.
Yeah, maybe this Christmas we were talking about doing some kind of like an Etsy kind of thing with some homemade stuff that a lot of our team riders and their families, make kind of a BMXy. Brant Moore. What's up, Brant? Is there one thing you have always wanted to make but have never had the chance to? Wow, that's a great question. One thing you've always wanted to make but I've never had the chance to. Well, I mean, we've had chances to make pretty much anything, but we haven't always jumped on it. Yeah, I don't know. I would say I would say we've made everything that we've really wanted to. I mean, in a lot of cases, we've made things that didn't go anywhere, didn't pay off, and we quit making. But I've never passed on anything that I've wanted to make. We've pretty much made I think at one point we wanted to make a mag wheel. That wasn't going to happen after getting into the cost of that. So yeah, maybe a mag wheel. I wanted to make a cool mag, but that didn't happen. So you battled with the best and you're still here. Dread. Well, if you mean other brands, yeah, I guess so. It's never really felt like much of a battle, to be honest with you. Maybe more of like a sparring match. I don't know, but yep, we are still here, luckily. and still having a good time. Is there any BMX part you feel deserves innovation, like a disc brake for trail riders? Well, I mean, people have disc brakes. I have a bike with a disc brake on it, actually, that I've been riding lately. I'm still a little up in the air about the whole thing, to be honest, but we'll see. I feel like if you do a smaller rotor and a less powerful spur, then I feel like it's pretty good on a 20-inch bike. But you've got these, 160 millimeter rotors and these dual, the 4 piston calipers. I feel like it's just too much brake. And if you're going to ride a peg, you're going to slip off the peg, you're going to hit the disc. So I don't know. I'm up in the air about the disc, but like I said, I have one on my bike. I'm riding it. We're still thinking about it. What little devil guys rode for S&M and Fit other than Stricker, Van, Matt Berenger, and Bennett? Well, that's a lot of guys right there. Obviously, Van Homan, legendary little devil rider. Berenger, Bennett. I mean, I don't know. That is a good question. Shout out though to Little Scary Derek over at Little Devil. Prince Albert Cranks come back. Yep, we answered that one. Maybe in small numbers, but not really as cranks for everybody, but just people that want to build a retro kind of bike. Ever thought about moving the company out of California? Knobster. No, I haven't. There's just no better place to have it. To be honest, we're close to a lot of aerospace business, a lot of off-road business, the port, close to the port. I can't even. There's a lot of people in that area that are good at manufacturing. There's a ton of subcontractors, heat treaters, powder coaters, that kind of thing. I don't think you could even really do that business anywhere else unless you've been there for a really long time. And like I mentioned, Profile, they're doing a great job down in Florida. Maybe they have a similar situation with some other local businesses or industries, but no, it's not leaving California anytime soon. Not thrilled about a lot of stuff that goes on in California as far as business is concerned, but all the things I just mentioned make it far and away the best place to be. How often do you have ideas that Melissa gives a hard no to? Doesn't really matter. We're doing it anyway. Favorite S&M t-shirt design you have made? I mean, I like Big Shield, just a classic Big Shield. This here's exactly why we ride S&M and Fit bikes. This comes from Lou Giordanob. My pronunciation of these names is terrible, by the way. I apologize to everybody for butchering your names. This here's exactly why we ride S&M and Fit bikes. Always fresh and new. Where else can you go and talk to the boss man, CEO? When are we going to do the S&M movie and tell the story? SHL, HBH, S&M. Well, that is in the works. It's just a huge task, and this is a good opportunity for me to mention to everybody that's sent me tapes and everything else. We are duplicating those and digitizing those, and I'm going to start getting those back to you. I know people have been asking me a lot about that. I am going to start getting your original tapes back to you. And we are going to work on maybe we break it up into a couple different parts, do the whole story of S&M into a little series. I'm not sure, but that is in the works. So stay tuned. And if you've got any good footage out there that you haven't told me about, maybe something that is pretty unique or behind the scenes kind of stuff, let me know. Maybe we could incorporate that in there. Marvin Lauderly rode for S&M and Little Devil. Thank you. And How much did you make on the Jane Pratt show? That's a big fat goose egg. I didn't make a dime to go on the Jane Pratt show, but I got flown to New York City, which was cool. And they took me to CBGB's after the show to see some bands. So that was cool. And they put me up in a crazy hotel and we made for a classic moment. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I did try my hardest to fight the owner of Sub Pop Records, which didn't happen, but I did take my shirt off, flex, and throw a cushion at the crowd. So I tried. Your interviews on that show with Dennis Anderson were awesome. Thank you, Dynamike 710. Yeah, that was fun. I really liked the first one, the first Unclicked podcast with Dennis and Fudger. The second one was a little odd, but just because it was more of a topical kind of thing, maybe that should have just been like a wrap up show. But yeah, I really enjoyed going on there and appreciate it. All right, so back over to these questions. What are your thoughts on forged brakes? Is this something you would ever make? I'm a little confused on this. Forged brakes. I think if we're talking about like a U brake, 990 brake, this guy that we almost all use, I think they're all forged. They're cold forged. So they're, they're pounded into shape. So maybe this is a spelling issue or something. So I don't know. We're going to move on because I think, like I said, I think all U brakes are forged. Oh, well, some are CNC machined. When we made the Revenge brake, we CNC machined those out of billet material. But realistically, the most cost-effective way to make that type of part is to forge it, and you also make it really dense and make a better part. Really, I would say a forged brake arm would be stiffer than a CNC machined brake arm, and it'd be a lot cheaper once you got over the initial tooling cost of it all. Pen 15, Chris, how often do you ride? And do you think you will ever get sick of BMX? So there's a couple parts to this question, but let's start with that one. Lately, I've not been riding much because I've been riding a mountain bike and riding a road bike. I'm getting ready for this crazy ride we did last week through the mountains. And it's been snowing like crazy for the last, seems like 6 months straight. So now that all that's done, we may have a line running at the trails by the end of the weekend. So I could be riding daily again throughout the summer, which I'm looking forward to. Bonus question. Do you think you'll ever get sick of BMX? I'll never get sick of riding BMX. I'm probably already pretty sick of a lot of the BS that goes along with BMX. But if you mean riding, I will never be sick of BMX. As you get older, do you shred on mountain bikes? Or anything like that? I wouldn't say I shred on mountain bikes, but I do. I just kind of ride more or less cross country. So I've got some ratty, just terrible mountain bike. I've got 2 of them out here and I just ride them around, just try and keep from getting, too out of shape. And then I did this road bike thing, which is the first time I've ever done that in my whole life. And that seemed like way too much work. So won't be doing much of that. I love my BMX, but sometimes it hurts me. I need to ride the nerdy mountain bike for a while I heal. Well, we're on the exact same page with this one. You ride the mountain bike to stay kind of shape and, work through injuries, and then you're good to go on the BMX bike. So yeah, we're doing the same thing there. Hector Pinal asked, how much does the boss pay for insurance for that place? Bless that mess. Well, I mean, I'm going to assume we're talking about health insurance and that place, I suppose, S&M and Fit. We do 50-50 health insurance with our employees. So if you want to get in on health insurance, we pay for half of it. And then the employees pay for the other half, but at least their half is it's pre-tax. So it's tax deductible. That's a lot of money, as anyone out there that has health insurance knows. It's pretty expensive. But yeah, we cover half of our employees' health insurance. Kyle P, question for Moeller. Why do you not make smaller sized Panthers for the younger racers? I remember reading there were a few prototypes made. Any truth to that? Yes, there's truth to that. We made one for Ryan Sayers from New Mexico. We made one for his daughter. And coincidentally, he's here in Colorado at the jumps right now with his son, trying to get that one line I just mentioned running. So he drove up to do that this week. And we did make some smaller Steel Panthers. The problem with this is that when you make a chromoly mini or expert, it's going to be quite a bit heavier than whatever else people are riding, whether it be aluminum or carbon. And yeah, you've got some parents that are loyal chromoly riders, whether it be S&M or other brands, and they love to get their kids on little chromoly frames. But realistically, at the end of the day, if your little kid is really racing and you're spending all that money going to those events, I mean, do you want to put them out there on he or she out there on a frame that's half a pound, pound and a half heavier than another frame that they could be on when the whole bike only weighs 14 pounds? I don't know. Maybe that I would love to make some smaller frames even for our girls. So I'm gonna put that in my book right here. So I'm gonna work on that. So stay tuned on that one. Joshua Garcia asks, how or did the COVID bike crazy affect the production of things, or how did COVID? So how did COVID affect our business? Well, we pretty much sold everything that we had immediately. And then, as you probably heard on like go on these podcasts or whatever, and then we ordered a bunch of stuff, made a bunch of stuff, and they're sitting on a bunch of stuff. So it was great, and then it wasn't so great for business. I don't know. So it's been interesting, that's for sure. I feel like a lot of people got outside, started riding more. Maybe they're home from work, they're hanging out with their kids, they're riding more, and that was good. Obviously we lost a lot of people, friends. Doc Chulo comes to mind, who passed away of COVID. So that was a huge bummer. But then on the flip side, people kind of rediscovered doing things outside, which was cool. I bought a bunch of stuff, which was cool. Now they went back to work. Everyone's coming back in their regular routine, I feel like. And maybe the bikes are sitting around, in backyard in the rain. So that's not cool. Any plans for a trail bike with disc brakes? I don't know. That's funny because I'm riding one. Maybe I'll share some more on that. I know we're also building a 29-inch cruiser frame with a disc brake right now that Doug's riding. So discs are creeping into our program. When will the dirt jumper be announced? So I'm assuming we're talking about maybe a 26-inch dirt jumper, which I didn't know. I didn't even know that info is out there. But we do have something that we're working on with that. So maybe that's an announcement that we're working on one. Okay, let's go back over to the live ones here. Sig frames for them Hallahan fellas soon. Well, we already have the squib, the fit squib, for Shane, and then Nate and Luke have these Rambler frames for S&M that we're working on right now. So yes, soon. Shane Cisco, what's up, Shane? Who designed the WTF frame and the P-rail seat post seat system? Oh, you're making me remember back the WTF. I mean, geez, that WTF, all that's some wacky stuff going on with that frame. It all made sense. That might have all come from me. I know Dylan Ambrose rode one too, and he was always good with ideas, like the thread-on brake system that we use. Dylan helped come up with that. So I don't know, maybe Dylan and myself, the P-railed seat system. So the P-railed seat post was a railed, it was a way to put a railed seat on a pivotal post, which was pretty cool. And I don't know, we just quit doing it because nobody really cared. But we maybe should have kept going with that, because some people do like being able to adjust their seat front to back like you can with rails, but then they like the simplicity and the, you know, the the splined design for the angle of the seat of the pivotal. So that seems like anytime I think of seat posts, in designing something like that, something wacky like that, I think Marvin, but I don't know. That might have been me, maybe me and Marvin. Who knows? But the P railed seat post, the pivotal railed post. To bring it back, the RAM, the chromoly they use doesn't taste as good as the old stuff. I licked my frame for nostalgia and the feeling never came back. Yeah, well, that old chromoly, maybe there's something in it. If you're still in here, Brant, I'd like to say thank you for the knowledge your YouTube channel has. I can't believe how much I didn't know. Wow, Brant recently tackled the thread on cable stop for the removable brake system, which, I mean, it's a really interesting thing to think about, because yeah, Shane Cisco, lunch is over, got to get back to work. Yeah, get back to work. The removable brake system, I mean, honestly, when people first started taking their brakes off their bikes, so we go back to, I don't know, Mike Griffin from Pennsylvania was one of the first guys who was riding brakeless. Troy was riding brakeless. Gons from Arizona was riding brakeless. And we decided to make the Fit Edwin frame with no brake mounts on it. I think that might have been the first brakeless, high-end aftermarket frame. We just left the hole in the brake bridge, the way frames always were back in the, whatever, 60s, 70s, 80s, even the first S&M frames. They just had a little straight, or actually a plate on the early ones, a doubled up plate that had an adjustable slot for your regular caliper, side pull brake. And that was it. That's all bikes had. And you put the caliper brake in there, the side pull caliper brake, and then you zip tied your cable to your top tube. You didn't have mounts or cable stops or any of this stuff. So then when we made the Edwin frame, the funny thing is we just went back to that and we sold it with this cheap little brake, which only cost $1 or something, but we just put it on there with a cheap cable so nobody lost their minds. Like bike and parents and there's people wouldn't lose their minds that who are selling kids bikes with no brakes, but they all take the brakes off anyway. But we put this whole thing on there. This is kind of just to keep people from getting crazy about it. And then years later, that's essentially what everybody was doing with that, what we were calling thread-on brake system. We never wanted to call it removable, just from the liability kind of perspective, because we weren't trying to suggest that you remove your brakes. We were saying that, hey, you could thread your brakes on. But I mean, come on, realistically, the whole thing was just designed to rip the brakes off as soon as the bike left the bike shop. And the bike shop's not going to sell a complete bike to a kid that has no brakes on it. So you want to make it as easy as possible to rip the brakes off without selling a bike with a side pull caliper, which, clearly doesn't work. So then, fast forward to now, you got Brant out there, doing all the brakes, and you got this little teeny weeny, L-shaped thing held in with a 2 millimeter bolt, and you need to put 2 cables in it with a some kind of configuration to, increase the tension or something. Yeah, thing's going to flex because it's this big. It has a 2 millimeter bolt in it, and it's all designed just to rip off as soon as the bike leaves the bike shop. So for me personally, the whole thing is just like it's kind of a big show. I mean, who's out there with the full brake setup and then all of a sudden they're gonna take the brakes off and then they're gonna ride, street, and then they're gonna put the whole thing back on and do all this again. I mean, it's just not happening. No one's putting them on, taking them off, putting them on, taking them off. So I don't know. Either you ride brakes or you don't ride brakes. If you ride brakes, weld all the stuff on there. So then all works really well. And then if you don't ride brakes, don't ride brakes. But if you're going to go back and forth with the back and forth with the brakes on and off, the only thing I could say about this is maybe like you ride street, park most of the time, and you don't use brakes. I mean, geez, the nitro games, these dudes are rolling into that giant thing and they don't even have brakes. Half of them, and they're going into the giant roll-in nitro jump without brakes. So if you are going to have brakes because you ride the trails, maybe you have the downhill spots kind of fast. There's a couple sections you got to scrub off some speed. You don't want to put your foot in your tire. Not everyone's Troy McMurray. You don't want to put your foot in your tire before you go off a dirt jump. Which, I mean, I don't want to put my foot in my tire before I go off a dirt jump. So I'm going to hit my brakes. And then you want to take all the brakes off and go back to the trails. What I'm proposing, and I said this same thing 20-something years ago when all this first started. Guys are riding with no brakes. I always wanted a brake in the bag, just a little lever that was hinged so you could put it on and off your bar, a straight cable, and a caliper brake, side pull, just like I'm talking about in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like just like an old brake. You could take the whole thing, roll it up, put it in a little bag, put it in your backpack, and then you would only have one bolt to hold the caliper brake to your frame, just like we had when the first S&M frame came out. And then you would have a hinged lever. You could do both of them with an Allen, 5 mil Allen, whatever. You could put your brake on in 2 minutes. You could take it off. You could have 2 Velcro little cable ties, and you can put it in your bag, and you can put it back on your bike so that when you're riding the trails, you can slow down before the big section. If you need to, then you can take it back off and go do all your other stuff. So that's it for my brake thing. So Brant Moore, yes, you have uncovered a flexi brake part. And there's like 3 people out there that are experiencing that flex. But I'm glad you're digging into it. Oh, Kareem Williams, and keeping us on our toes. Now are we gonna redesign the thread-on brake system for the 3 dudes that use it? Maybe. Brant Moore, weld them on. All right, we're gonna weld. The thing is that Brant, you've picked a street frame to ride park on, more or less, which I kind of dug into the other day too. And I thought, oh, even the Dagger frame, which would be more of our park frame, it had brake system too. So I don't know, but a lot of our trail oriented frames welded on mounts. Like I said, my CCR welded on mounts. Well, I have 2 I have 2 frames. I have a CCR with welded on mounts, and I have a prototype sample frame with a disc on the back. But at this point, I still kind of like the CCR with the U-brake better. Yeah, I'm moving on from the brakes. Will you guys please get a heater for Rita? She always looks freezing. That's hilarious. She does have a heater, actually. I'm sure of it. And the whole back is heated to some degree. She does look a little chilly, though. I agree. And I would think it'd be hard to, put the stickers on when your hands are a little cold, so we need to look into that. All right, I'll write that down right here. Heater for Reba. Is it because of it's because of the dual cable. Colony says in their descriptions it is not recommended for dual cables. See, that's another thing. I mean, there's certain brands out there. And we're back on the brakes. There's certain brands out there that I don't know. I think more along, that probably think more along the same lines. Like Colony is one of those brands, right? Like that's a brake. And I don't mean any disrespect by that. I just, you know what I mean? A lot of mating seal noises. Colony, I can think of a few other brands like Nowhere. I mean, these are brake kind of brands. So yeah, what are they doing? I got to look into what they're doing. I'm kept up on what they're doing with the brake system, but I'm gonna look into that. Redline was light. S&M was a tank. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the first S&M frames were not heavy. I mean, we were racing professionally on them, and I mean, Pete Lonkarevich won a #1 pro title on an S&M Holmes frame. Wasn't that heavy? What's up with your Colorado trail spot? Is it always going to be private or a public trail spot? It's going to be private. And geez, it's only rideable 4 or 5 months a year anyway. And it's a ton of work to get it rideable again. And then next thing you know, it's covered in snow again. So that's going to be a private spot. We're going to have our event down there this August. If you're interested in coming and check it out. Are we ever going to see chrome plated forks again? Yeah, we are doing chrome forks. It just we can't do heat treated forks in chrome. So the forks that are going to be chrome are going to be like, either some kind of retro throwback thing like a Challenger fork or a Cruiser fork or something like that. And the cost is going to be extremely high, especially with this new changeover to the new style of, chrome, which is, environmentally friendly, or more environmentally friendly than the previous version. But some of the first samples we've seen look pretty good of that new chrome. So it's going to be pricey, but at least it'll look good. Do you talk to Rick Moliterno? Ape5 asks. Occasionally we'll message on Instagram, but that's it. I haven't talked to Rick on the phone or in person in a long time, but no problems with Smiling Rick these days. We are all good. Bring back some more all over logo colorways. I only have a seat clamp. Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because we actually can't. We can hydro dip, but we can't do that that process where it's an anodized film right on the part, like the all over shield wrap parts. That company that does that just straight up said no, they don't want our business. They don't want to do anything unless it's extremely expensive. So I think they do guns. That might be about it, but they don't want to do bike parts. Profile had a spot that they were doing some all over shield wrap stuff, like the shield wrap hubs. But I don't think their spot's doing it for them anymore. But what we can do hydro dip, which, I actually have a couple hydro dipped parts right here where this is a different process. This is just the water hydro dip thing. And we are kind of messing with the idea of doing these right now. I mean, here's a stem and here's a sprocket that are hydro dipped. But here's the problem with the hydro dip. It's not as clean. It's got, the backside isn't done. So now you got this. Looks kind of gross. Sort of have like a line where the hydro dip goes around the part or on the stem. Same thing. You got this line here. Just doesn't look as clean as all over wrap stuff. But I am kind of working on that right now. How do we find out more about that August event in Colorado? Well, you asked me. It's not Swamp Fest. I'm not trying to make money on it. I'm not trying to get a bunch of yahoos down here that are weird, that I don't like. So it's sort of a S&M fit family vibe, August 4th through the 6th. You got to figure it out. You got to hit me up on Instagram. Like I said, it's just a free event, but I'm not trying to get, a bunch of weirdos down here with their, fireworks and explosives and swamp boats or whatever the hell's going on. Swamp fest. It looks like a nightmare. I want no part of that. And keep in mind, this is like private property, and we're not trying to make money. And I don't want anyone dying. I'm not trying to injure anybody. We're just trying to ride around on some dirt jumps and sit by the fire and paddle around in the pond. So that's that. Hit me up. Would you consider doing in-house custom complete bikes using signature frames or maybe the ATF line? Would you consider doing in-house custom complete bikes? Not really. I mean, that's what bike shops do. Go to a bike shop. What do you feel is the greatest part or innovation you helped create? That's a good question. I feel like we brought the campy hidden set over from road bikes. That was pretty cool, but we didn't create it. We just sort of borrowed it from road and brought it to BMX. That little brake mount system, since talking about brakes are all the rage, we did come up with that with the big bolt that holds the mount to the frame with the mitered mount. That's worked out really well. There's some people fighting here. There's some internet drama going on in the live feed. What's with Nick Long racing a Steel Panther? Well, I think Nick Long is now the brand manager, race team manager, or something for Haro. I know he's got a good gig with Haro, but he's always been driving around. The last few years, he's been driving around in the RV, teaching the clinics and doing all that. And I mean, after his, big time pro heyday, I think he just wanted to do things his way, and he wanted to ride a chromoly bike. So he got a Steel Panther, and he had that terrible injury and all that. But before that, I rode the Steel Panther. I wasn't aware he was still on the Steel Panther, to be honest. I figured he would have switched over to some kind of Haro bike, unless maybe he just put on it. I don't know, but Nick Long's a cool dude. We like him. Okay, so these are the questions I was supposed to be asking. I'm winding it down on these. When are there any plans to update the new batch of divers to maybe a V2 with a bit wider rear triangle to accommodate wider tires when slammed? Or is there any ideas to fill that steeper head tube angle, more tech street style frame spot with a new frame outside of the diver name, but still under the S&M badge instead of fit? That's a great question. And crazy thing is actually making, we kind of, a quick backstory on the Holy Diver. It wasn't it didn't start well. I can tell you that. So that was originally the Hobie Doan signature frame. And then that all blew apart. And we had these gussets with the HD, I think they're actually punched out. It was like a hollow HD in the gusset, and I think the frames were built, or at least the front triangles were built or something. It was this whole ugly deal. So then, what are you going to do? Not produce these frames that are already partially produced or maybe even completely made at that point. I can't remember. So I don't know, some genius over at S&M Bikes came up with the Holy Diver name. And so that made the HD make sense. And it was a geometry that everybody liked, everybody wanted. We didn't have anything like that. And then, so then, at some point in recent history, someone decided to stop making it because it was just, they felt it was a bad look to have this signature frame that never really came out. And then it's got a different name. So it's just kind of the whole thing is just kind of crappy. It just reminds everybody of a terrible, thing that went down, but we never really replaced it as far as the geometry goes. And then recently we figured out that we had a ton of the stickers, not a ton, but we had a fair amount of the Holy Diver stickers, the dropouts, a lot of the parts for the frame. So we decided, we're going to use them up. So we're doing a batch of them right now. One of the guys that loves that frame is Stahl. And we didn't have anything else for him to ride. So this is exactly what you're saying. Any batch of divers of V2. So we are doing this batch right now. And then in the future, now these parts are going to get used up. That will eventually go away completely, but there will be another frame. And what that frame is at this point is, we don't know. But business is so tough these days. We can take parts from an old discontinued frame and put them on the DIY section of the S&M site and let them, make them available to frame builders out there, which we do see a few parts trickle out here and there, a couple dropout sets, head tubes, whatever, but not big numbers because there's just not that many people making their own frames. So Holy Diver is going to be back here real soon with some new colors. And then after that, there will be a new frame with a similar geometry that maybe will address the dropout, maybe make that a bit smaller, maybe widen up the back end. Okay, I'm gonna get in my last page here. Kelly Ford asked question, what is Dave Clymer up to these days? It's a great question. I saw Dave at the gas station in California a few months ago. He was on his way to the gym. So was I. Different gyms, but we were both at the gas station getting gas and going to the gym. So I don't know. Oh, I know. I do know what he's doing. So he was the steel worker. He was up on building the buildings with the I-beams and the whole thing, and he fell off like 5 stories or something insane. A couple stories. Broke, tons and tons of bones. Recovered, and now works in a recovery business to just help people get off drugs. So I think he's helping people get sober and on his free time going to the gym. I don't think he rides BMX, but he looked really healthy, really fit, and it was cool seeing him. Dougie Fresh asks, hey, Chris, how awesome are your employees? So I'm going to assume this is Dougie Fresh, Dara, who's in the office working right now. They're pretty awesome. Yeah. Can't say enough about people that keep that place running every day. I mean, we have a pretty small crew comparatively to years past, 20 something, we have 22 people there. We've been up to 35 or something, but all the riffraff's gone and it's just all good people. So yeah, they are awesome. Thank you, employees. Rocky Pond Productions asked, you should show the design building of the tooling fixtures for the bars, frames, forks, etc. There's a lot of that stuff in Factory Friday. If you watch Factory Friday, now not everything's in Factory Friday. There's a lot of stuff we have never shown for some reason. Maybe we will soon. A lot of alignment stuff, the frame, fork, the bar, they all have alignment fixtures where we double check everything. We haven't shown any of that. But I feel like most of the tooling and fixtures have been shown. I mean, it's all pretty basic stuff. It's a weldment, so you got something to hold things, tack it so it doesn't move, and find a way to weld it. But I know there's a lot of people out there that think that the whole frame should be welded completely inside of a fixture. But we've tried it that way. We do it the way we do it now. It works better. I mean, if you do the root tacks well, you keep everything straight. You have an alignment fixture table to check them. It's faster. It's it allows the welders to do better welds because they can have full access to everything. So anyway, check out Factory Friday. You'll see some pictures. Bring back the ditch forks with 990s. Yeah, maybe. Could you bring back the heavy ass frame for the mid school guys, modernized but with the old geometry and longer top tube lengths? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I'll put that in the book. Will Mad Dog be inviting people over to his trails in Colorado this year? If so, may I join? Oh, wow. Another reoccurring theme. Yes, if you were there last year, you're more than invited to come back again this year. I think we had a great time. We didn't have any, problems. There were no weirdos, no sticks of dynamite going off. Yeah, hit me up on Instagram, Moeller_Chris. Question, yo, Mad Dog. Out of all the bikes you built up, do you have one that stands out the most? I've said before, I love my CCR. SE got a Hot Wheels. This is from Rakobi. SE got a Hot Wheels. When you gonna see S&M Hot Wheels? Probably never. I don't know. I don't know what they got going on over there at SE. I don't know if Todd's doing it or if there's somebody at the parent company, Fuji. I don't know who's putting these things together. Like there's a flannel company, there's SE, there's a Dogtown Skateboards SE. It's unbelievable. I mean, I love Dogtown Skateboards. It's American made brand, American brand, Dogtown, American, S&M, Jim, Red Dog near Chris, Mad Dog, Moeller got 2 dogs. Dogtown, for goodness sake. Don't know. The marketing department over there at SC has got, you guys are doing a good job. Congratulations. We're not doing anything, but we're making bikes. Slam bars were a staple in the 90s and I still bent them. How is the product or production improved? How has the product? S&M slam bars were a staple in the 90s and still bent them. Well, you know what? It's steel. It's going to bend. You put a 8-foot bar on it and pull on it, it's going to bend. You throw your bike 20 feet in the air, it comes down on the grip, it's going to bend. I mean, it's going to bend. And if it doesn't bend, then what? I mean, your stem's going to break, arm's going to break. Lucky your slam bar bent a little bit. I need chrome pitchforks. Will chrome forks be available? Not if they're heat treated. Boy, this is a long one. Chris didn't race during that tournament. Okay, I'm just gonna get into this one. This is from Mike Hagan. I need chrome pitchforks. Will chrome 20-inch forks be available ever? Maybe heavy duty, just pitchforks that are not meant to be like lightweight or anything. Also, even if not for production, but I've wondered what S&M's take on a Stingray style frame built with modern geometry might look like. Oh, so like the curved double top tube on the Stingray. I don't know, man. That was a little before my era. So, I mean, I had a Stingray actually. It was actually my first decent bike before my Webco. But I'm not really interested in that. I'm currently restoring a 77-inch twin scrambler. Chris maybe didn't race during that time. Did not until the 80s. Mine has S&M bars and will have profile 160 cranks and kick shift 2-speed coaster brake. Mix of old and new with all the correct colors of the original bike, banana seat and all. The ultimate retro bike is what I'm saying, I guess. Would it look weird with today's geometry? I mean, it wouldn't be as cool. The thing that makes the Stingray so cool is it's so short and wheelies so easy and it's raked out and, you look like the kid in the beginning of On Any Sunday with the tiny cranks and the tiny gear doing the wheelie. That's what you want to do. You don't want modern geometry on that thing. Come on. Okay, Nate wants to know, would you consider doing made to order custom colors? I need trans purple Credence XLs. I'm running perfect 10s and trans purple, such as turtleneck, top load. From front load, want us to roll geometry, chopping to be 9.25, keeping the headset the same. Would pay extra for trans purple MOD frame. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities is more color options and being available in stock. So here's the thing with the colors. It's a great question. So we've kind of boiled it down to working with only one paint shop because they're really good. The owner's really cool. His right-hand lady is really cool. We love working with them. And everything's going well with them. So they're always pretty backed up with work anyway. But powder coating always requires like a whole box of powder. And there's all, because of this, you can't just, load up the gun and the system to go and just shoot like one frame and efficiently. It would cost, let's say, let's round numbers. Let's say it costs $200 for a lot charge, which, maybe you can get 10 frames in a lot, and it would cost $20 per frame to do 10 frames. Well, it's going to cost $200 to do one frame. In other words, it's never going to cost less than the lot charge. And if the lot charge is $200, now you're talking about the box of powder, loading up the system and everything to shoot the one frame. It's going to be $200. I mean, do people really want to pay $200 for one paint job on one frame? Because that's what it would take. Unless we decided to do a whole run in that color, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But in general, the best thing you can do is just keep hounding us and telling us what color you want. And even better yet, have your local bike shop that you deal with hounding Doug or Murph and telling them. And then when we do our production meetings every couple of weeks, they'll say, hey, quite a few people have been asking for, trans purple on the MOD. And then that's the easiest way to get that rolling. Otherwise, you could email us, customer service at snmbikes.com, and you could just say, hey, look, I don't even care about the cost, but this is what I want to have done. And in that case, we could make it happen. And we're not going to mark up that cost. We're just going to pass it along to you, but it might be a little steep just because of this lot charge situation. So that's it for my printed questions. I want to look at some more over here and see if anything interesting. Did Todd Lyons get Jimmy fired from Huffy? That is a wild question. Did Todd Lyons get Jimmy fired from Huffy? I can't imagine that would have happened. What I would imagine is that Jimmy got Jimmy fired, because Jimmy is nuts and he's rad on a bike, no doubt about it, but he's also nuts. So Jimmy probably got himself fired. I don't think Todd Lyons wielded enough power at Huffy to get anyone fired. And so I don't think that's what happened. Is S&M considered making a more aggressive knobby than the mainline in 22? No, the main line's so good. What knobby? Where are you riding these bikes? Are you riding are you riding dual slalom on the bike? The trails aren't even loose. They're like concrete these days. So no, the main line is the best tire ever. I love that tire. 2.4 in the front, or the 2.1 in the back. Love it. Mr. Moeller. What's up, Julius? Huffy before Walmart. I don't know what that means. I'm not a big fan of either. Are you guys going to make oversized bars and stems? No, like the 30 mil deal with the bulge thing. I don't think it's even necessary. The bulge bar, that kind of pro taper bulge bar, makes sense on like a motocross bike where there's no crossbar and you just have the main bar, but you want the bar to flex so that you don't get, so beat up, but you don't want it snapping, at the triple clamp, or in case of a mountain bike at the stem. But if you've got a crossbar and the whole deal, you don't need it. So your bar is going to be doing its thing. It's not going to be snapping off at the stem. So I think that the 30 mil or whatever it is, the taper, like I said, the pro taper, who I think Answer might have cooked that up originally, and that's the name, pro taper. You don't need that. Thanks for all you have done for BMX Mad Dog. Thank you, DFJ. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything BMX has done for me. I'm 54 and still riding. Massive love and respect from New Zealand. That's one place I've never been. Would love to go to New Zealand someday. Milky was just I think Milky's even maybe from New Zealand. I don't know. He's got some New Zealand roots. He loves it there too. And everything I hear about it is great. Got to get there someday. I feel like the topic of designed flex is something a lot of people don't know much about. Yeah, I mean, you want a little bit of flex. That's why steel bikes ride so good. And what's funny is I just did 50-mile thing through the Durango to Silver road bike, and the road bike that I rode was ended up being I borrowed a guy. It was carbon fiber, and it rode really well. Some people say that carbon fiber kind of flexes like steel, where aluminum doesn't. So aluminum's kind of a rough ride. Steel's good. Flex is good. Make custom frames again. That's from Michael Kelly. Yeah, making custom frames is really a great idea for us because it's something we can do. The problem is the cost. I mean, we were doing $550 per frame and we're kind of losing our butt. And I don't know if people want to pay more than that. I've been going back and forth with people recently about custom frames, and there's guys out there that are building custom frames for, in that $500 price range. I don't know how they're doing it, or they're doing it just for fun. They're definitely not making any money. And unfortunately, you just can't do stuff for free or for a break even forever. So I'd love to do some custom stuff, but the prices would just have to go up. Guys, check out the interview Brant did with Milky Andrew last night. Watched it today. That was entertaining. What's up, brother? What inspired the unicorn shirt? That's funny. My daughter drew that. Actually, she basically sketched it when she was about 5, I think, and then gave it to Eben, and then Eben turned it into a real deal. And those are almost gone now. I've had 11s for 6 years. They never slip or bend. They have deep knurling. Yeah, the knurling on our bars is pretty good, and that's one of the hardest things to figure out in that business. Has the manufacturing side of the business over the years is how to knurl a handlebar. And for anybody that's out there trying to set up their own shop, make their own bars, I'm going to tell you right now, you can't do it on a lathe. They have these things. You can try it on a lathe, but it's not going to work good. They have these things called these these roll die machines that just come in and like pinch the material. And we tried that. That doesn't work either. The way that we ended up doing it was with a machine from like an ancient machine from the 60s or something. And we've got a couple of them just in case it breaks. Everything in the machine is mechanical. So there's no computers. There's nothing like that. There's pneumatics. There might be a little hydraulic component to it, but it's mainly just a mechanical machine that spins the material and then brings the cutting tool in and brings it out, but brings it in and brings it out in such a way that it doesn't create a breaking point on the edge. And it also allows the diamond knurls to run over each other, but not in a crazy way where it just looks like a bunch of junk. So that's a pain to get that right, but we've got it right. The cutting tools critical too, but they don't do it quite the same overseas. It never looks quite the same. So I appreciate you noticing that. It's been a whole deal figuring that out, but we got it done. I will only ever ride the Hoder grips. They're my favorite. I like them too. My only gripe is that the bar end diameter is so much smaller than the grip diameter. Would you ever make the bar end bigger so it's flush? The bar end diameter. Try the bar ends from the Credence grips. The bar end that comes with the Reynolds grip is larger. So we have two different, and one's got like a Sharpie shield on it, and one's got another design on it. But the Reynolds bar end has a larger diameter. So try those. Good afternoon, Chris. Well, good afternoon, Viejo BMX. Will you ever make a squib frame in any colors from the rainbow? I mean, when it's a signature kind of frame like that, we kind of wait for the guys to tell us. I don't know, maybe hit up Shane on Instagram and tell him what you're looking for. Do you think if you put gold in the material, it bent with diamonds? I don't know. That sounds like a Judas Priest song to me. Is it possible to purchase a custom built frame made out of the Fit Byco complete line, lower cost tubing, yet lower cost custom frame? No, that's not going to happen. Those frames are made overseas. The whole bike is put together overseas, and there's not much custom going on there. I mean, minimum order quantities are pretty big. So have you ever considered doing a premium line of parts made of titanium? Yeah, we have. Titanium in some ways, titanium's a great material for what we do because it's light, it's strong. The problem in the past was always that it was very too flexy. I know I'm going all the way back to like the 80s when Titan made a lot of titanium frames, and I rode a few when I was a test rider in that era for BMX Action Magazine. They were so flexy that your chain might come off, your back wheel would rub your chain stays. But I know, and the material is actually easier to get than the high end alloy steel that we're using. It's a little more difficult to weld, and maybe it's cost prohibitive as far as like the availability of the material might be okay, but the price is really high. I don't know. I mean, I see the titanium cranks out there. I see a few frames here and there. I don't know if people, based on what I've seen, you get a handful of people that are willing to pay a ton of money for something like that, but the majority of people can't and won't. So then you can't really build it in any more than a handful. And there's already people out there that make a handful of titanium frames. So I don't know. I don't know if we need to bother with that. Is S&M, this is a great question, S&M going to start using investment cast frame parts in the future? Well, I spent, I don't have any right here, but I spent a ton of time and a ton of money making those investment cast frame parts for the Fit Shortcut, the latest versions of the Fit Shortcut and the Fit Mixtape frames, which are available now. Check them out on the on the Fit website or at a Fit dealer. But so I made an investment cast chainstay yoke, an investment cast seat stay bridge, and investment cast rear drops for both of those frames. And like I said, the setup on the investment casting was, it's just tons and tons of money. Like, I don't know how much I have into it all, maybe like 10, 15 grand, maybe more. Took forever to get these things made. And then you make the frames, you weld them into the frame. So I could get a similar investment casting, especially for like the chainstay bridge, which I think is good because you can get a ton of tire clearance without having to bend the tubes, real crazy to get the tire clearance. But nobody seems to care. I mean, there's a lot of brands out there that make these frames with these investment cast chainstay bridges. Like I said, even the Shortcut and the Mixtape in there. I'm flying off the shelf. So I don't think people really care, to be honest. But and you can't get that stuff made in the States. I've looked everywhere to get that type of investment cast part made in the United States. And I can't find a place. And even if you did find a place, it would be $1 billion. It'd just be insane. So that's not going to happen. So you could make them in Taiwan. You could ship them over here, and then we could weld them into an American-made frame. Does anybody want that? I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Sometimes you get problems where you weld the stays to the investment casting because I feel like the material is different on the tube and the casting. I feel like you get breaks there. But a lot of that stuff's already out there. All the other brands are doing that. At the same shop in Taiwan. They all use the same shop, and they all use the same. Somebody's got this, the bells and whistle. They got the new bells and whistle. They got to get it on there. So then they get it. And then, so Maybe. I mean, if it's not broke, why fix it? Any interest in using 3D printed steel parts instead of investment cast parts? I mean, that could be a great way around what I was just talking about. I gotta look into that. I'm not sure what the cost is on 3D printing a steel part like that. Are you going to keep your mustache white? I mean, that's not really up to me, you know. Not getting the gray, whatever. Like, I'm not definitely not dyeing my mustache. That'd be weird. Remake a Widowmaker. Well, I mean, it's a cruiser, so we have a cruiser already. Would you ever bring back the DL line of fit parts? Love the uniqueness of it. Still have the sprockets and stem. I mean, front load stems aren't really the thing. And that was like the down low. It was like the redneck was front load. It was up here, and then the fit front load was the down low, and it was down low. Which is so weird because like you got the down low front load stem, and you got the big bars, and you had people big bars, low stem. I just come on now. Are we going up? Are we going down? Or we're going down and we're going up at the same time? Going down and up. Weird. Can I get a 21-inch Holy Diver frame? Yeah, we're making them as we speak. They are in the works. So keep your eyes peeled. Get a back order in there with your dealer, local dealer. 3D printing metal is going to be crazy in the coming decades. I agree. And I mean, I totally agree. But is it going to be affordable? Or are we going to be able to work it into BMX parts for essentially for people between the ages of 14 and, what's our customer? 14 to 20 something, really? 14 to 18? What kind of budget are we dealing with there? 14 to 18. But seen other stuff like this before, remember when the dropouts were cold rolled steel, and then they were punched, on the punch press, and then pretty soon we had to take two of them, put them together, and weld them to make them thicker, and that was time consuming, labor intensive, and therefore expensive. So then the new technology was flame cutting. So then they were putting this thick steel on the table and cutting it with this, torch, basically, which was good because it cost less than having to weld two pieces together, but it wasn't really that accurate. So your axle slot might be a little wide, might be a little small, whatever. So tolerances were a little sloppy. So then the laser cutter came out. And at first it wasn't affordable, but now it is more affordable. And then there's a water jet cutter, and it's even better, but it's more expensive. And so there's always some new technology that takes a while to become affordable. So 3D printing, I think it's definitely a possibility in the future that stuff works its way into production parts. I just look at the bone saw frame. I'd like to see those again. Yeah, that was Isaac Barnes' frame. I mean, speaking of Canada, any thoughts on producing a trials frame that accommodates both 20 and 22-inch wheels? Now, is this a spelling mistake? Is this trails or is this trials? I'm going to say this is trails that accommodates both wheel sizes. Let's just for shits and giggles, let's just imagine this is trials. No, we're not making a trials frame. No trials frame coming out of S&M bikes anytime soon. So if it's a trails frame that accommodates both 20 and 20, like, why would you want that? Why do you want 20 and 22-inch wheels? Either get a 20 or get a 22. Or what are you? 22-inch front wheel, 20-inch back wheel. I like that idea, right? You get the faster, smoother, big wheel in the front. You get the smaller, stronger wheel in the back. So when you over or under rotate, your three or whatever, kick out, you don't bend your back wheel as easy. I like the 2022, but I don't see why you would want 20 or 22 on both. So OS20 Steel Panther. We've made an OS20 bike or two in our day, and I remember making one for John Paul Rogers, and we thought for a minute there that OS20 was gonna take off in the race scene, but it didn't. And I remember like guys were down at the test track in San Diego and they were timing, and the OS20 lap times weren't any faster than 20-inch times. So I don't know. It's hard to get stuff. Tires, the whole thing, the spokes, the rims. So I don't know. I feel like OS20 might, I mean, go 20-inch or go 22-inch. I feel like OS20 is not going to be around forever. Julian Poulos, what happened to the wishbone stays? Used to be an S&M signature. Now every frame is double diamond like a standard. I mean, yeah, we did the Dugan frame with the wishbone, but then we went more to the S-bend chain stays across the board. Strength, really. And I feel like the back end's got a lot shorter, sprocket clearance, the whole deal. So I think the S-bend stays have just been easier to get the sprocket clearance and still get the strength, the back end. But I kind of always like that little wishbone too. But is it possible to get my hands on any 130 millimeter head tubes? All the head tubes that we have for sale are on the DIY section of the S&M website, so you can check those out. Wow. Well, we must be winding down here because Ape5 asks thoughts about making scooters. We have made scooter bars like years and years ago. Somebody brought in like $5,000 cash and had us make some scooter bars. So we did it, but we try not to think about it. What's the biggest change you want to see happen in the BMX industry? That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to any of these podcasts that I've been doing the last, couple years, but I kind of do rant and rave a little bit um, about bike shops, that kind of thing. But so yeah, I feel like the biggest change I would like to see happen would be like kind of um, at the retail level. I'd love to see shops get behind a handful of brands instead of making the shop like a swap meet vibe with stuff from 100 different BMX brands. I mean, I wish they'd just get behind a couple, carry a full line, and allow these brands to do more on the marketing side of things as far as team riders, fun projects, videos, stuff that, riders want to see. Instead, it's the whole thing's just so diluted. There's like 100 brands, shops, it's got stuff from 100 different companies. It's just a mess. So nobody can really ever like look at S&M and Fit. It just, it's a shrinking company. And we're probably doing better than most of the brands. And it's just a constant shrinking process at this point. Can't grow. And if you do have a BMX company that's growing, it's because it's you and your wife. It's just the two of you, and you work out of an apartment. And that's it. So you're growing, but everybody's just pretty rinky dink at this point, and there's no end in sight to how rinky dink it's just going to get more and more and more rinky dink. We're doing it to ourselves, So that would be the change that the retail level changed in such a way that brands could grow and do cool stuff, and put more money into R&D, put more money into tooling to do cool stuff. But as it is now, everybody's just kind of shrinking and trying to survive. So it's just going to be the same old for a while. History repeats itself. Yes, it does. Yes, it really does. And I've been in this business since I was a kid, so I've seen all this stuff happen. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. It always repeats itself, almost like perfectly, actually, which is really scary. How many riders have you had to bail out of jail? Can you tell some rad stories? Well, I've bailed my brother out of jail once. I've picked up Keith Trainer from jail. I don't know if I bailed him out of jail. I helped bail our production manager, Jason Ball, out of jail in Mexico one time. And we have sent money to Estonia to get Hoder out of jail. So that's a few jail stories. Oh, I bailed myself out of jail. Our Super G bailed me out of jail once. Actually, I never even got into jail. I was in the holding area of jail. I picked John Paul Rogers up at the jail. I don't know if I bailed him out. Magoo, I think Magoo might have paid for him to get out, actually, but I helped pick him up. Some rad stories. Well, I think those are pretty rad stories. It's like Huffy and Mongoose and Schwinn. Well, yeah, I guess there's three totally different stories, but they're all pretty interesting. Huffy, I mean, that was an American-made bike brand. I just spoke with a older gentleman here in town recently that used to work at Huffy in Ohio, making their tooling back in the day. And it was pretty sweet, actually. But the marketing of the brand and the quality of the products, I mean, that wasn't the manufacturing shop guys' problem. That was the designers, the marketing people, the price point, the retailers. And then next thing you know, Huffy is just synonymous with junk. And then that's the end of that. Now it's probably been bought and sold 10 times. So, but it was at one point an American made bike brand, and it could have gone any way. The guys in the back were really skilled. This particular guy I was talking to is a genius almost. And he was just told, hey, make it faster, make it cheaper. So that's what he did, but he could have made it better too. But he wasn't asked to do that. So he didn't. So that's a sad story, in my opinion. Mongoose, oh man, to talk about a killer history. Skip Hess, Mongoose, BMX products. I mean, at one point that company owned the term BMX. It was BMX products. It wasn't even called Mongoose. It was called BMX products. And they just let that go. Got in bed with some drag racer, and next thing you know, it's Mongoose, Tom the Mongoose McEwen. It could have been BMX products to this day. Skip Hess is a badass. They were putting out 500 of those Super Goose bikes a day when they were in Chatsworth in the like late 70s, early 80s. Unreal. And again, just mismanaged. Shit the bed, bought and sold 10 times. I don't know. They've got Kevin Peraza on the team. I love Kevin Peraza and Greg Illingsworth and Lee Ramsdale. I mean, these are all good dudes, but it's Mongoose. It's not the Mongoose that Skip Hess started, that's for sure. And then what was the last one there? I forgot the third. Oh, Schwinn. Oh God. Schwinn. Talk about another badass American bike company out of Chicago, all American made. And that family, you got to read the book, No Hands, the Schwinn story. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, the story of the Schwinn family and just how mismanaged that whole thing was. I mean, at one point they were a huge employer in the Chicago area. Just effed it up completely, just totally clueless of what was going on in the bike business. Missed everything, from the 10 speed, their 10 speed's 50 pounds. Everybody else's 10 speed is, 25 pounds. Effed that up. BMX started. They missed that. Mountain bike started. They missed that. Then they shipped everything to Taiwan, Japan, or wherever they sent it and basically put Taiwan in business. And there we go. That's where we are now. I remember BMX Action. I think it was then doing an article with a tour of the Huffy factory. I could see that. I mean, I think they were outside of Dayton. I mean, I wish somebody else was running that operation. The Huffy didn't have to be garbage. It could have been good stuff. But again, it's like I was talking about the retailers. That's the problem. You get these Walmarts and whoever else, Big Five. I don't know who was selling bikes back then, but Schwinn had it dialed in with the Schwinn shops. That was good. Huffy is being sold by, department stores essentially. They want it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and they want to make all the money for doing what? Putting the bike on the floor, and that was the end of it. The retailer screwed that up completely. It seems like the sport is bigger than ever. Oh, really? While also being very core, which isn't bad, just doesn't get put out there unless a rider with a large platform does it. You know, I mean, I don't know where you're getting the numbers, but the sport is bigger than ever. I mean, why is that? Because it's in the Olympics or something? I don't feel like the sport is bigger than ever. I mean, I'm in a town right now where I have some nice dirt jumps and there's a nice skate park down the road, and there's probably 5 people in this town that ride. And one of them, besides myself, can even get through the jumps, and he rides a mountain bike. So, and I know for a fact in this town in the 80s, there was tons of guys riding. And because I still hang out with them. Jose Yanez was from this town. He invented the backflip. Um, Sport is not bigger than ever, though sport is maybe smaller than ever. I don't know where people get this information, but I had an 84 Super Goose and loved that thing. I mean, that was kind of towards the end of the real mongoose run before everything was overseas. But I mean, by 86 and 87, I got on the cover of BMX Action riding a mongoose, the Californian. It wasn't, they weren't, they weren't badass by any means. BMX is growing again like skateboarding. Maybe. I mean, well, a lot more skateboarders around here than there are bike riders. That's for sure. And that's unbelievable because there isn't a smooth piece of concrete in this entire town besides the tiny little skate park. So I don't know. I don't want to sound, negative, but I don't think the sport is huge. I mean, it's just as fun as ever, cooler than ever. It should be growing, but I think a lot of kids are just zombies, in the phone zone. I don't think they want to ride bikes. And even if they do, just to the next corner so they can stop and get back on the phone again. So I don't know. Tosh said if BMX went mainstream, it would crash on the beaches of uncoolness and die. Yeah, I think that happened. I think that already happened once in the 80s. I think when you had movies coming out about BMX, it was on the beaches of coolness, dying. Jinko jeans and airwalks. Yeah, that was a weird era. The airwalks weren't bad. The Jinko jeans, I mean, just get caught in your chain. You don't need jeans that big. See you in Kelowna. I'm 40 minutes away in Vernon. Lots of fun skate parks here, and the Fit Mac pedals and Fit Trail pedals, or what you're talking about. Yes, they were originally that pedal. I actually designed that pedal when Ben Ward worked for Fit. Ben and I designed that pedal, and we did a lot of it. We designed a lot of it looking at people doing tabletops actually, and how their feet get tweaked when you're kind of inverted, and we kind of twisted the whole pedal. So it was kind of a take on a Shimano DX. I don't think people give Shimano credit for the offset pedal. Prior to Shimano, which is a Japanese, road bike fishing reel brand, all BMX pedals were just rectangular pedals. So, people would run these cheap metal KKT, whatever pedals. And Shimano, I don't know how, but these guys are just like engineers. They decided that they were going to offset the pedal, which, I mean, if you think about it, it's like it changed. Pedals never really went back. So now maybe you got a 1/2 inch offset, right? But it's still a rectangle. It's 2 rectangles, but they're offset by a 1/2 inch. So when the pedal's straight up and down and you put your foot on it, say your feet come off in the air, or you're going around a turn, your foot comes off. You got to put your foot back on the pedal. The pedal's standing straight up and down, and you go, oh, like an old school pedal, like a whatever rat trap, a KKT, or if your foot goes on it, oh, you're stuck on the pedal. So they offset the thing. You step on it, boom, it just rolls. Boom, it just rolls every time. Feet come off, hit the top of the pedal, just rolls, and your foot is now back on the pedal. And where are you on your spindle? You're 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, basically, because it's half and half. you're like a quarter of an inch forward. Your foot, the ball of your foot is a quarter of an inch forward on the pedal spindle. And it's like you're in the best spot ever. And you're on your pedals. And because this pedal is offset. And that's Shimano, the Shimano DX. And they made all this other crazy stuff around that time, like the cranks that had the you could adjust the length of the crank by just spinning the pedal spindle around in the crank. That one never really took off because, I mean, you either like 175s or you like 180s or whatever. You don't need to, oh, today I'm going to ride a 180. Tomorrow I'm going to ride a 175. Like no one's doing that. So that didn't make any sense. But props to Shimano and the DX. So when Ben Ward and I sat down to make this fit pedal, we started with the DX style like everybody does. But we tweaked the rectangle. So it's still got that 0.4, 0.5, whatever offset, but now the shape of the pedal is slightly different. So when you're up like this and your foot's tweaked and your foot's like, mated to the pedal better with your shoe, the pedal's so badass. And, we did it in a sealed version. It's too expensive. Nobody would buy it. And then people tell me, oh, but look at like the Yoshimura pedal. Like that's pretty badass. It's American made. I love the fact that it's made in America, but things like $180 or something. No one can afford a $180 set of pedals. And if you can, you get your pedals for free. That's the problem. It's like the people that can afford this stuff can get it for free anyway because they're pros. Everybody else is 14 to 18, whatever the demographic is, 14 to 19. Can't afford a $180 pedal, but what they can afford is a fit trail pedal. And yeah, originally that pedal was called the Mac pedal. It was the Sean McIntosh pedal. I mean, in all honesty, no offense, but you didn't really have anything to do with the pedal. Me and Ben Ward made the pedal. And then we just like, if we call this the fit pedal, no one's going to buy it. So let's call it the Mac pedal because Sean Mac's a badass. We'll call it the Mac pedal. So we call it the Mac pedal. He runs the pedal and then, he quits and whatever else motherfucks us. And then we changed it to the fit trail pedal, which is what it essentially is a fit trail pedal. If it's aluminum, it's made for the trails. And that's what I ride. I love it. It's loose ball, but it's serviceable. Not that you ever need to service it. It's not going to come loose or blow off. It's got a nice size spindle. It's a sick pedal. If you want an aluminum pedal, that's the pedal. And how much does it cost? It's like really affordable. And it's probably on sale like everything else. So pick up a fit trail pedal. And then the PC version, it's a PC pedal. You're going to blow through it. If you want a super badass PC pedal, you get the Hoder pedal, which has the crazy spindle on it, which we spent, untold amounts of money to tool up for. It's called a parallelogram. There you go. I like that. The pedal is parallelogram. I only remember GT profile sprockets like big circle saws, Diamondback Dyno S&M standard. Auburn was a weird frame with the link. They did. That's funny because I worked there at the time when Todd Huffman came up with the two-piece frame. And at first it was kind of cool because it was all motocross related. It's called the CR, just like the Honda, the close ratio, whatever is red. It's going to have all these interchangeable back ends, which are going to be like, swing arms on a dirt bike. But in reality, when he made the first ones, the first one had a chromoly front triangle, chromoly rear triangle, and they bolted together, didn't have aluminum yet in the back. Rod Beckering, I think, was the test rider at the time. And then Danny Milwee. But anyway, I was in there trying to put those things together when they first came in, and they did not line up. So the back ends and the front triangles didn't go together. They had to tweak them to put them together. And then if you unbolted them, like, they'd come apart. It's crazy. But then eventually they went to the aluminum back end, and the whole idea was like shorter ones, longer ones. It's kind of a cool idea, but it never really took off. Are chrome frames gone forever? No, I don't think so. But if it costs $40 to chrome plate a handlebar, imagine how much it's going to cost to chrome plate a frame. Chance Glassford, curious as to why Clint chose to go with a 3/8 inch dropout slot instead of a 14. like pretty much any other freestyle frame. Well, I ride that frame. I love it. A rear hub with a 3/8 axle is a lot lighter than a hub with a big honking 14 mil axle. And if you don't need a 14 mil axle, like you don't ride pegs, or even if you did ride pegs on a 3/8 and you rode smooth, you don't need a 14. So you don't want to haul around a giant 14. And you could have a nice little race style hub, like you have a little elite, a profile elite. Um, And the dropout's even smaller. I mean, think about how small the CCR dropout is compared to like any dropout with a 14. So that's why he went with the 3/8. It's lighter, it's cleaner, smaller drop. The availability of hubs that he liked, um, came in 3/8. And you don't why have more axle than you need? So that's why. Do you have any girls with signature frames or colorways? It's a good question. I don't think we do. I mean, we had Jessie Gregory on S&M. She, recently, I could have seen that happening with her, but she got on GT. So no, and we do have some younger girls coming up right now that are I think really have some bright futures. So we'll see. But as of now, no. Relic Hub, somebody says, yeah, Relic probably has Clint is ride some Relic parts. They probably, I'm sure, like Ashley has a 3/8 hub. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure he does. Can you tell us the history of the Prince Albert cranks? Yeah, I can. It is like it was a difficult journey that led to eventually having a crank. But not to go on for 2 hours about cranks, but the thing about the Prince Albert crank that I was trying to do, the name obviously came because it was pierced, on both ends. And I think at the time Neil wrote on S&M, Neil Wood, and I think he had that piercing. And I think when you get that piercing in your, I think that's what it's called. So that's why it was called that, because they were pierced. But that was just like whatever, just kind of like a little side note. But what I was trying to do with that crank was I wanted to eliminate the ovalization of the crank boss with the 48 splines. Because remember, you would get, I think Profile has it dialed in now, but there was a point in time when you either ran flight cranks from Redline that had a pinch bolt, or GT cranks, which were SR aluminum cranks with the box spindle, but they had a pinch bolt. So I always preferred pinch bolts because the arms would slide on, slide off, easy. On, tighten, loosen, off. There was no problems. Profiles back in the early days, a lot of times I was like, you had to beat them. Like, oh, just smack them with a hammer. People would say, like, I don't know. I just kind of grew up being taught that smacking shit with hammers was bad. Working on dirt bikes and BMX bikes and whatever, you don't hit it with a hammer. So I don't know. I never was real into that. But so what I wanted to do was basically weld the crank up with the crank boss unsplined. In other words, just a thicker metal tube, and then have it annealed so the whole arm would become softer. Then take it to the guy that did the it's called a broaching shop. Take it to the broaching shop so he could spline it after it was already welded, and then have it heat treated so it got back up to the HRC that the hardness, the Rockwell hardness that you wanted, and then boom, now you're ready to ride. The fit would be perfect between the the spline 48 spline spindle and then the broached female crank boss. That was the idea. Like, because what was happening was you take that, you mass produce these broached female fittings for the crank, and then when you weld them into the crank, they go oval. So you got all this welding on one side and no welding on the other. I mean, like Profile wraps it around and welds the seam and then grinds it off so you don't see the seam. But for the most part, all the welding's down here where the arm is. Then you ovalize it, and now it doesn't fit on your spindle. So that's the whole thing. We were trying to make cranks that fit on and off. But the problem was you're normalizing them, softening them, broaching them, heat treating them. And then maybe the guy heat treats them too much and then they become brittle and then they snap off. And the whole thing just became a whole deal. So I don't know. I think maybe where profile's at these days is maybe I'm pretty sure they broach those fittings before they weld them in. And so like if Matt or any of you guys, from profile are watching or hear about this, maybe you can hit me up later and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I think maybe they thickened it at some point, and then maybe they make the tolerance a tiny bit bigger. In other words, they broach it a tiny bit bigger than they used to. So when they do weld it, and maybe they tell their welders to be careful not to overcook it on one side, but keep it round. They made it a little bit looser so that it ovalizes just a hair. Now it still fits on good. Because as far as I know, like I've been riding fit cranks for a long time now, 24 mil fit cranks made in Taiwan, and they fit perfect. So I don't have a problem, but I'm pretty sure Profile got all this worked out years ago, but without going through all this labor intensive cost, um, uh, and high cost of the way I did it. So anyway, that was why we came up with the cranks. And then, Neil had the thing in his dick, and then we called him Prince Albert's. Any chances of using another super light frame like an LAF? Probably not. I mean, I don't think anybody cares anymore. I mean, the frames are already pretty darn light, and the modern frames are probably pretty close to the LAF. It's just at the time that was really light, but now I think everything is light enough. Any chance we'll make a 26-inch DJ frame? Yes, we are. That is something we're looking into now. Would you ever do a lighter, updated run of old frames like the Bennett or Troy McMurray frame? I mean, they were what they were. I don't see bringing them out again as lighter, so probably not. Could we get a gold holy diver? Probably could. Hit up your local dealer and tell them to call the rep. And why is that swedged ovalized down tubes didn't take off? My Fit Eddie V3 has it, and supposedly it's more effective at resisting denting. Correct. Also, would you revisit integrated seat posts? So yeah, the down tube. I mean, the thing is, like, when people first started doing pedal grinds, or crank arm grinds, or even just slipping off like a crooked grind on your pegs, boom, the down tube's just smacking the rail. So the whole idea was like it's always smacking the rail on the bottom, So, we want to ovalize the tube, making it like more dent resistant from the bottom because it's a sharper shape down here. But now it's going to be a little weaker, in the long run, in the long way, because it's taller and you got this big flat surface on the side. Sunday was doing the whatever, the rain gutter, the sound wave, or whatever, the same kind of thing. Everybody's trying to like keep the tube from denting from the bottom, and I think it did work. Like I think the Sunday one works. I think the ovalized fit tube worked, but eventually we just tooled up for and made thicker down tubes, 1.3" diameter down tubes. They're thicker. They're totally symmetrical. They're just as strong all the way around. They're, like I said, they're air hardened, material, alloy steel. So they're never going to get around denting a down tube, especially when you got 100 and whatever, 80-pound dude slipping off of a grind of some sort and smashing his down tube on a metal handrail. But I think they're a lot better than they used to be in the Eddie V3 era. Also, visit integrated seat posts. I mean, that was Eddie's thing. He had a seat post down low. He didn't want to mess with it. But I think most people want to be able to, like, change your stuff out, raise it, lower it, just mess around with it. Plus it would get weird too when you travel. Like, you've got this seat post, even if it's only 3 inches long, it's like now it's sticking out. It's like weird in your bike bag. It's just weird to travel. It's nice to pull the seat post out, and get your bag as small as possible. So I don't know. It seemed like created more problems just trying to get around one little bolt. So I don't know. Ever think about doing a fork stem combo with a removable keyway so that they could line up perfectly quickly? I mean, that's been done. The weird thing about that is, what if it's not perfectly straight? Like a lot of things happen in the manufacturing process. What if it's not perfectly straight? Also, what if like the forces on the bar, cause the bar to turn and the stem to move on the fork? I mean, that's good. I mean, if everything's just like just locked up, it's gonna catastrophically explode. I don't So yeah, we have considered it, and somebody has made it. I have seen it before, and I don't think it makes any sense. I mean, who's out there riding on a daily basis where they're like, "Oh God, damn it, again! Your bars slipped again." I don't think it's happening. And if your bars are slipping that much, I mean, maybe you need to cut down on the stack washers and get your stem so that, there's only an eighth of an inch of, area missing from your steer tube stem contact on the top. I mean, some people have got, this is the thickness of your stem, and people have got their fork up to about halfway. And they've got, all these stack washers down here, and they got half their stem. I mean, you see these videos of the stems coming off the forks. I mean, come on, people. You got to get the stem on the fork as much as possible. You need a tiny, tiny bit to tighten your compression nut to keep your headset tight. You don't want any more gap than that, or something weird's going to happen. And then you'll be asking me if we're considered a keyway. No, we just consider putting our fork all the way up in our stem. That's what we do. Throughout the years, I've definitely been saved by things breaking and flexing when it would have been bad if they didn't. Exactly. Could make lineup marks on the steer tube and the stem. That's funny too, because it's just your front wheel and your bars. I mean, just you put it against the wall, straighten your bars, tighten everything up, right? You do that and your bike feels great and you're out riding and everything's great. Then you get on your buddy's bike and his bars are crooked, but he's convinced they're straight. Then he gets on your bike, he's convinced your bars are crooked, but you're convinced they're straight. So it doesn't freaking matter. Just you think they're straight enough. I mean, what are you going to veer, over your riding straight for what, 10 miles? You're going to veer off an inch. I mean, it's not going to happen. It looks straight enough. What is the story behind the WTF frame and fork? Well, what is the story? The story is we had all these ideas. Like, for one of the big things was we wanted to make the distance between the bottom headset race and the front axle. We wanted to make that distance as short as possible so that there was less leverage on your fork, where forks tend to catastrophically break, which is below, at the race, at the bottom of the head tube. So we wanted to make that distance shorter so that there was less leverage. In order to make that distance shorter, the geometry of the whole frame has to change to accommodate this shorter fork. And while we were at it, we said, WTF, what the fuck? Let's make the head tube shorter. Why? Well, because head tubes are steel and they're big and they're heavy. So let's make it really short. Now let's make the steer tube, the fork, short. Why? Because it's steel, it's heavy too. We'll make it all short. Then how are we going to get our bars up here? We'll just have a stem, use a tall top load stem, right? So now your bars are up here. Everything else is shorter. You got less leverage here. While we're at it, what the fuck? Front dropouts, solid. Rear dropouts, solid. You could ice pick all day. You're not going to squish your drop. Solid. You got to have female axles now. Why not? They're lighter. They're cleaner. You're not dragging around an extra inch of dropout for no reason. You're not going to put just extra metal shit in your backpack when you go ride. Why do you want to carry it around on your bike? So that was the whole idea. Like, let's just rethink everything. But it's BMX. Everybody freaks out. I can't. Can't deal with it, you know. Oh my God, there's a female axle. Yeah, it's a bolt, just a bolt that goes in the side. But you know what? We did it. Some people liked it. Some people were bummed we quit doing it. But at the end of the day, we're gonna keep selling them. You can't tell people in BMX what to do. You know what happened with Robbie Morales and Cult? Oh my God. It's, do you not know? Have you not, do you not know what happened? Robbie worked at Fit for a long time and then quit and started Cult. Curious as to what happened with that. Well, he wanted to own a company. And unfortunately, the company he worked for was owned by me. And that wasn't going to change. So he's going to have to go somewhere else and start a company that he owned. It's funny because that's why professional mechanics get paid, because they can eyeball, line up the bar, stem, and fork. That's one of the reasons they get paid. They also get paid because other people don't know how to do shit. That ain't trials. I built my daughter a pink ATF XL. She has the coolest bike, pitchfork, Credence headset with a Grand Slam and a black and pink speedball tire. Stranger XR wheels. S&M makes the best stuff. I appreciate that, and that does sound like a cool bike. Taller bars create more leverage and thus slip in the stem easier. Totally. I mean 100%. Not only taller, but wider. So now your bars are 30 inches wide, and you throw the bike and it comes down on its 30-inch wide handlebar. Now everything's just getting tweaked. But I don't know what to tell you, man. Some people want a 30-inch handlebar. When I was a kid, you showed up at the track with a 30-inch handlebar, you can't pass bike inspection. You got to be 28 or you're overlapping with the dude next to you in, lane 7. That's not going to work out good. I don't know. I mean, when we came out with I remember, this is a funny story. I remember the biggest bar out was a slam bar. It was 8 inches tall by 28, just race spec, 828, right? Prior to that, GT Pro bars were good. There was the Star bar was good. The Woody Itzen bar was good. They're all 828. Not as much back sweep as bars had in the 80s, but then the slam bar kind of became the new standard bar. Everybody had the slam bar or copied the slam bar or whatever. 8 by 28. But there was like a scene of riders that thought that those big bars were lame and that people that used them were dumb. So all the guys in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of guys in the Pacific, in the Northeast, there were pockets of trail riders primarily, or like park guys that would flow the park, but mainly trail guys that would run these slam bars, and they would get clowned by all these other guys because these guys had 6-inch bars by 24, whatever. I don't give a shit what bars people have. I mean, as long as they're riding a bike, I think that's great. They can run big bars, little bars, whatever bars, right? So then somebody came out with an 8.25 bar at some point. I don't know. Maybe it was solid bikes. Aaron came out with a bar. Maybe it was 8.25. Somebody's going to correct me here if I'm wrong. This live thing is pretty sweet. I wish I had this one. I did like to unclick, because I might say, I might say the wrong country. I might say Thailand instead of Taiwan. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Now you can straighten me out. But solid 8.25. And I remember people freaking out, oh my God, this is ridiculous, 8.25. And then I was saying, hey, does anybody remember the GT, like Nelson Chanity signature bar? It was 12 inches tall. The bar, I swear the bar was 12 inches tall. And when I went over to Rich Long's house, I was 12 years old. Nelson Chanity was over there. The bar was 12 inches tall. And this is 1982, 12 inches tall. And how big are the bars on a Stingray? 20, 25 inches tall? I mean, they're just handlebars. Some people want them big, some people want them small. I don't. You know what? We make handlebars. You want big bars? Make big bars. You want little bars? We'll make little bars. I have no personal attachment to the size of people's handlebars. Me personally, I am on a 9.25 Credence bar now, and I never thought I'd ride a bar that big, but I love it. I'm only barely 5'10", and I'm like standing more straight up and down. I wouldn't race with that bar, You can't get a gate start with that. You cannot get a gate start with a bar that's too tall. You need 8-inch bars max, in my opinion, unless you're really tall, unless you're 6'2" or something. But lower bars for racing, for sure. You're coming out of the gate. Your whole first couple pedals are going to be really good. You get a big tall bar, you're not going to be doing anything. I don't know. Maybe Terry Tennant rides a big bar, but he's Terry Tennant. He rides a 180 and a 185 crank arm at the same time. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. Race good on a beach cruiser. It doesn't matter. He's Terry Tennant. We're not Terry Tennant. So you don't want a huge bar for racing. But for trail riding, people are standing straight up and down. I mean, they're straight up and down now. And it's probably really good for your back. And the big bars in the Northwest back in the day, the turn downs, people are like, oh my God, look at this dude's turn down. These things aren't easy to do a turn down with a giant bar compared to doing a turn down. How are you going to do a turn down with this little, this whatever, So people freak out about the bars. We just came out with the 12-inch bar, the 12-step bar. The comments are insane. Like, people are angry. You guys are making, somebody told me on Instagram, you guys are making BMX look dumb. No, that's incorrect. These tires with the camouflage or whatever on them, that's making BMX look dumb. If anything's making it look dumb. You got a purple and a pink and a white tire, and then when you ride, your wheel looks like a kaleidoscope. That's a nightmare. I'll take a 12-inch bar over a kaleidoscope tire. I mean, honestly, all day long. But whatever. We are personally making BMX look dumb with 12-inch bars. Well, then don't buy them and don't ride them. Anyway, kaleidoscope tires. Hate that shit. 12-step bars on my XR50. I'm guilty. See? That coffee cup is dope. I think we just sold out of these, actually. So, I don't know. Hopefully you got them. They're going to become collector's items. Oh, Eric Stefano. What's up, Eric? Busy with some trading card business today. Clown tires. How many of those clown tires did you sell when you worked at Tip Plus, Eric Stefano? I guarantee you made some good commission on those clown tires from that other brand over there. What's up, Chris? What's up, Augustin Glauber? Again, sorry. Not bike parts related, but media related. Do you at S&M have archived all the content from your early mid-20s, 2000s website? I have no idea. Maybe on like some discs or something. I got boxes of weird stuff like that. I could look. I don't know. I need that mug and shirt and hat and hoodie, same color. snmbikes.com, man. Check it out. Check it out. We got all kinds of stuff. 72-degree seat tube thoughts. I mean, what are we talking? Like, that the highest frame stand over 9 inches, like 10, right? What is the Stranger has like a 10-inch stand over frame or something, like a 1 degree. I don't know. Here's the thing about it that's going to F everything up. I mean, back in the day, the CW Pistol Pete frame, the seat tube angle is 68 degrees or something. Now, that's fine. Like, you want your seat back here because you don't want to have to run the snake post, or you don't have to run the layback seat post. Put your seat back here. You just put the seat tube. But the way BMX measures their frames, which is asinine, the way we measure our top tube length of our frame is from the center of the top tube at the head tube to the center of the top tube at the seat tube. Now, think about this. Frame geometry. Kick the seat angle back. Now the tube just got longer. But think about your wheelbase and think about your cranks, your front wheel, and your cranks and your back wheel. So you get the bike that you had before, but now all of a sudden it says you have a 21.25 top tube. But you don't. I mean, you do, but you have the same bike you just had before. So nobody can mess with the 71-degree seat tube, because if they do, it messes with everything. So now you don't know what to buy. You're like, oh my God, this bike says it's a 21.25, but it feels just like my 21, because it is the same as your 21. You're just right here. You went, but your bike didn't change. So that's the dumbest measurement that we in the world. Like no other bike discipline uses this top tube dimension. It's stupid. But again, it's BMX. What are you gonna do? You can't do anything. You can't go to a meeting of people that determine top tube lengths. I mean, you might run into the chromoly police if you go over there. So I don't know. It's dumb. You make the frame taller, top tube gets longer. You make the frame shorter, top tube gets shorter. You kick the seat tube back, top tube gets longer. You straighten it up, top tube gets shorter. It's all the same bike. So I just made the same bike and gave you like 10 different top tube dimensions on the same bike. And the only people I've ever seen that are like cognizant of this and pay attention to this are racers. I used to watch like John Purse and all these guys at the track, and they were measuring from like the bottom bracket, from the center of the crank bolt to the front axle. And then they'd measure the back, and then they'd measure to the ground. And then they knew what was going on with their bike. They couldn't care less what you told them about. Say, oh, this bike's a 21-inch top tube. Okay, whatever. Let me get my tape measure out. And then John Purse would start figuring out what he was actually riding. But that's a dude that paid his bills, racing every weekend. Everybody else is just, running around, doing tricks like me. But top tube length, dumb thing. Seat tube angle, can't change it, because if you change it, you mess up the whole program. And you know what? We've done this on bikes. We've actually gone down this dark alley ourselves with the small, medium, large, XL concept, where we were going to try and get around the top tube length, because the top tube length is so misleading and pointless. It all has to do with the standover and the seat angle and head angle. Even if the frame is like kicked back, and if it's steeper, so I tried to do it. It's not happening. Chris, I've never seen a person snap an S&M frame. I wish I could say the same, but I myself have snapped a few, and it's never pretty. Everything breaks eventually. You got to get new stuff, after something catastrophic. Like I showed that bike that I snapped in half on Instagram recently. That was the bike I jumped the car. It's on the cover of the book. I probably jumped that car. I jumped it twice, and that frame was like, please put me out of my misery. I was too lazy to change it. I love the way the frame rode. I wasn't going to change it. Then I go out with Alex Leach, allegedly. Hey, Jerry, how was your last day of school?
Good.
Are you happy to be out of school, or are you sad?
Sad.
Oh, okay. You got some ice cream?
Yes.
Can I finish my live chat?
Mom told me to stop you.
Okay, well, give me 10 minutes and we'll be done. I'll be done in 10 minutes, everybody. Anyway, my frame was probably begging.
Jerry, get out of the way.
My frame was probably begging to be replaced. I didn't listen. I go out with Alex Leach to ride a mini ramp, and who knows? I did a little disaster on a mini ramp or something dumb, and thing explodes. So it happens. Everything breaks eventually. You got to change it before it does. Brian Scheffel, how have you been able to keep such a level head when you've been surrounded by some semi-sketchy dudes, POWs, etc.? Semi-sketchy? That is an understatement. I mean, I was thrown in sketchy dudes from day one. You name it. Any kind of psychological or issue, substance related, you name it. I've been right in the middle of it. I just focus on bike riding. So I'm in an office with this lunatic. This is before S&M. Jerry. I have to keep in mind that I'm in an office with this, lecherous old man, because I'm trying to work and make some money and get some bike parts. I'm in a van with, I'm listening to Rat Invasion of Your Privacy for the 50th time in a 20-hour drive to El Paso, in a rolling bong with a bunch of, hair farmers. Why am I doing this? Because I'm trying to go to, Albuquerque to race BMX. I just got to keep focused on that. I can't let the rat round and round comes around. I can't let it get to me. So that's how I do it. Favorite non-S&M video. It's funny. I'm not a big video watcher. I never watched videos back in the day. I never even watch our own videos, to be honest. I'd go on those props, mega tours, and whatever. Wouldn't even watch them. So I don't really know. So I don't have an answer to that. Congratulations on the last day of school. Summer finally begins. Chin up. The sadness will soon disappear. That's for you, Jerry. Okay, well, let's have Jerry sign off for me then. Jerry, do you want to say thank you to everybody and say goodbye? No, maybe not. Okay. Thanks for the contributions to BMX. Your influence is heavy here in the Northwest. Love the Northwest. Always loved the Northwest, even back in the 80s when I was a kid and I first started going there. Puget Sound, Tacoma, Pete's BMX, the aroma of Tacoma, loved it. Portland, Puyallup, the Puyallup Pounder, love the Northwest. What with the trails with the Coos Bay, Toast, Mark Johnson, when he used to be in Seattle, might still be in Seattle. I don't know. Okay, this has been great. If you're ever in Minnesota, come ride Cottage Grove Bike Park. Not a huge bike park guy. I kind of like dirt. I like BMX tracks. I like dirt jumps. Never really got my head around the bike and concrete park, although I rode them when I was a kid. I'm more of a dirt guy, but yeah, I would love to. Thanks, Jerry. Shut it down. Who says that? Jacob Starling says, thanks, Jerry. Shut it down. Oh, it's a dirt jump park. Okay, I'm there. I'm all about the dirt jump parks. Speaking of the dirt jump parks, I got to get down to the dirt jumps and help my boys out down there. I just left them turned the pump on for the first time of the season, threw some tools down and was out. So I got to get back there. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. That was probably way longer. Melissa said to do it for an hour and a half. I did it for 2 hours, 17 minutes. But love talking about this stuff. Never gets old. There's always so much more to talk about, but, thank you everybody for 36 years of S&M Bikes. I have no idea how to turn this off, so I'm just going to close it.